Whoa, it says live.
Hello and welcome to PJ's channel. I'm PJ, and with me today is Starfleet Boy, and we will be discussing Avengers Endgame. Say hello, Starfleet Boy.
Hello, Starfleet Boy.
how,
Hello,
how
everybody.
how's your night going?
Pretty good. I'm kind of turned, so it's fun. But don't worry, I got my mind intact. In fact, I'm ready. I'm ready for this crazy ass discussion because it's a crazy ass movie. I'm totally excited. Thank you for having me on.
So it's safe to say that you liked it.
I liked it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're just gonna go through the basic plot here. I'm just gonna bring up the Wikipedia Endgame page. And the plot is pretty clearly laid out, so instead of going through my memory and taking notes, I can just follow this.
I like that. I wish I could do that on Starfleet Boy with Memory Alpha, but I feel there's too many eyes on me.
Oh well. So this movie opens immediately with Barton and his family. He's teaching his daughter how to shoot a bow and arrow, and you knew it was coming. You knew what was going to
Yeah,
happen. His
yeah.
family
That
disappears. That was intense.
the thunder in the air, the crispy sounds, like everything's so crispy. It was like exactly what was perfect about it was like at the end of Infinity Wars, that's the kind of tone you hear as the dusting is occurring, is like everything kind of is quiet. There's like not too many sounds. There's like a crispiness to everything, like in winter, when you can hear things from far away,
Yeah,
and then you hear thunder in the background. And I remember that, and I was like, oh shit, here it is. This is gonna be heartbreaking way to remind us what happened.
yeah, very well acted by Jeremy Renner. His
Yeah, that
reaction is
guy's
so real. And that's a great opening. And then we go right into Nebula and Tony Stark stuck on the ship, and it looks like Tony Stark's going to die. And they really do. I don't know if Robert Downey Jr. actually starved himself or they use visual effects, but he actually looks like he's about to die. Like
yeah, dude,
his
that,
face is
that
caved in and
yeah,
very thin, and it was very well done.
that actually made me really uncomfortable because you're absolutely right. Like it felt like he was really that way. But I think I have to imagine. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is known as a like an actor that goes like the distance for his craft. Like he's known as, I think he's follows the method school of acting, which means
Yeah,
like if you have to look that emaciated, it means he probably, starved himself, like you said. But regardless of that, like it was heartbreaking and uncomfortable. Like the whole scene that follows when they rescue him and then they go back and he's like, he has to eat like whatever porridge or some shit to get fat, get fattening. And like he's just fresh back home and he has that like thing where he rips out
yeah,
his
IV.
yeah, yeah, his no, but and he rips at his
Oh, he's
Iron
lifting
Man.
up his chest.
Yeah, he rips it out and then he just like collapses. Ugh, it was really
Yeah,
uncomfortable, but in a good way. Like it was hard to watch, but in a good way.
that's as real as the confrontations get in any Marvel movie, and the acting is just so good. I think he deserves some recognition for that role.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I'm sure this is not lost on anyone, but it's super special because I mean, Iron Man started it all. I keep forgetting that because it's gotten so big, right? In 10 years, like there's been so many movies. What is it?
Uh,
22 movies? Like how many
22,
movies?
22.
Yeah. I I I just have to say, I don't know if you feel this way, but like
This is
there's
well,
nothing.
I'm sorry, 21 before this one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this is the 22nd like series
But
finale almost, or
but that's the thing about the MCU in general. Like I don't think any other generation has quite uh, had this in their time before, like a 22 film epic. Like if you think of it as the way they've crafted it and the way that this movie, without getting ahead, in our discussion, but the way that it like all comes together, it's just like it somehow manages to like honor all 22 of those movies. And to me, that's just like it's awesome because we as a generation experienced something that no other generation has ever experienced. There's never been anything like this. It's crazy.
I'm so glad I knew nothing about this movie going in.
Yeah,
The
same.
funny enough, the time travel stuff is the one major thing that I knew about, and that was because and that was over a year ago because a year or so, maybe a year and a half, it was a while back where pictures came out that made it look like they were recreating uh, the battle in 2012, and people surmised that Captain Marvel may be helping them use time travel or something like that.
Oh,
Anyway,
gotcha.
but I knew there was a time travel thing, but I didn't know they'd go to the extent where they revisit like not Thor Ragnarok, Thor Dark World. They go back to the first Avengers movie. It's it's fan service at its best.
I
Like
agree
it's so
totally.
well done. And we don't have to we can jump ahead and talk about pretty much anything. It doesn't have to be completely linear. Uh, Not unlike the timelines, which they're not linear. They're when you apparently according to this movie, when you go back and you change something in the past, like the whole 2012 Avengers in New York thing is now a completely different occurrence uh, in the timeline where Loki disappears and Tony Stark has a heart attack. They induced
For
a heart attack. You know, it's like
yeah.
we're changing some stuff. And I was wondering, I was wanting to get your opinion about. Do you think they might do a Loki show in this reality now, the one where he escapes, and
I
that
mean
way
just
they don't have to, he doesn't have to be bound by continuity to
right.
the movie.
I I totally I think that's an awesome idea. I hope they do something like that. I mean, just Tom Hiddleston and the character of Loki has just kind of won the hearts of like fans, I think. Like just to give you a little background on me, like I read comic books as a kid, but like not to like I had friends who were like into it. Like they read everything. Like, it was just like a lot of comic books. They had boxes, remember those boxes that you can hold comic books for? They had like that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
I was more of a casual reader, but I was surrounded by these like hardcore readers, so they would tell me all the stories. So like I grew up knowing, like when I watch these films, I have these like moments where I'm like, oh yeah, I know about that because like the films do draw so much inspiration. But to say the least, like Loki was a character I knew existed, but I never cared about him until the films. And that's I think something that the films do really well is that they bring to life some of the characters that you may not everyone. I mean, I'm sure there were fans
yeah,
of Loki, but like for me in particular, like Loki's one of those cases of like where I was like when I knew about him in the comic books, I was like, oh, whatever. And I knew about the Nordic myths about the god of mischief and stuff like that, but
yeah,
Tom Hiddleston really brings something to it. So for sure, I think that was like a great move in that scene where he he like kind of just like it was really funny too because he's
yeah.
like the Tesseract just slides right over to him and everyone's busy and he just like picks it up and goes,
Yeah.
"Okay, goodbye, see you later," and leaves. It was pretty cool.
Uh,
Um,
the scene where Thor and Rocket Raccoon go back to Asgard, and the very first shot is Loki in his cage
right.
during the events of Thor: The Dark World. People cheered. I was like,
Yeah,
not like cheered loudly, but people were like visibly like pleased. I mean, the audience reactions in this movie were unlike any I've ever experienced in a movie ever.
I agree. It was the same in my theater. In fact, it was like I think on our group chat, which I won't give too much away because it's secret. But but someone was talking about how there were people sobbing in their theater, and I didn't type it about. I didn't like write about it, but there were people sobbing in my theater. I went to see it with my sister and my mom, and my sister was like a wreck. She was just crying basically throughout the whole film, and I have to admit that I could no longer hold back tears. There was a lot of stuff that just like really this movie like
Yeah,
really goes to the heart. Like it really like it doesn't shy away from like just going straight to your
punching
heart.
you in the gut.
Yeah. Yeah, and punching you in the gut. There's a lot of like I mean, I I almost want to say that it's like no, like me, I'm kind of like, I think Trek on the Tube calls me, I get into the hype a little too much,
Yeah.
but but like that hype is driving me to say things like I feel like this movie was note perfect because it just felt so good watching it. Like it just felt like, real, like heartbreaking, and it was an awesome experience to witness it. It was cool.
Um, when Tony, after Tony dies, at his funeral, when they're all doing that long pan across all the different characters, there was some kid in my row who was like, "I guess he's not coming back to life then," and I was like, "You." Oh, I was already trying to hold it back, and I managed to get through it, but I had a major headache because I didn't bring myself to let go, right? But I had a lump in my throat, and I was like, just my lip was quivering, and people around me were sobbing and consoling each other, and I was like, I don't wanna get into this. I don't wanna, because I would start like,
No, do you think
that's what would
PJ,
happen, and everybody would look at me and say, "Oh, well, he's really lost it."
you should do you should be that vulnerable. I mean, you're being that vulnerable right now. But PJ, like, do you think you're gonna watch it like in solitude when it comes out on whatever digital or whatever, and then you let yourself go? Will you just like will you can you experience it again, or is that time past?
Uh The first time is really the most important time. Like I watched
It's true.
what's that movie with Hugh Jackman, the last one where he's Logan. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
old man Picard. No, I'm just kidding.
There's a couple of sad things that happen in that movie that got to
Yeah,
me.
that's a heavy movie.
And the second time I watched it on video, I didn't care. Like I was like I knew what was coming, right? Like I might get choked up if I see that whole Tony and that whole funeral thing again. Like, 'cause that was pretty sad. I mean,
Yeah.
you've been watching this guy in these movies. He's been in 10 of these movies now out of the 22, and he's the guy who started it all. He's the backbone of it, and I love seeing Happy there with his daughter. He's like, "What do you want to eat?" She's like, "Cheeseburger." It's a callback to Iron Man. Like, it was so
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. Oh god, it was
I mean,
nice. It was
if
really
you've
emotional.
yeah, if
Go ahead.
you've watched all the movies, I think both of us have, right? I've watched every single one of them.
Yeah,
Pretty much, I think yeah, like I saw every movie in the theater. I think I've seen every single one from Iron Man 1 all the way to this one in the theaters. Um the payoff's huge because of moments like that. Like you can't I'm not saying that like this is not like I'm not trying to be a gatekeeper because I say it doesn't matter where you came onto the ride, you're going to enjoy it to some extent or another. But if you've invested some time and watched all 22 movies, the payoff in this movie is huge. And so I think that would happen no matter when. So if you only started getting into it for the Avengers, now if you go back and watch like Ant-Man or like Spider, everything just ties in beautifully into this movie. It's so cool.
I believe the saga as a whole doesn't end there either. Like, this is the stamp saying like this is the end of this iteration, but I think they're still going to do a Black Widow prequel. So like if a couple of prequels come out, you can kind of like fill in the blanks and even broaden the MCU in the first 3 phases or 4, cuz
Oh yeah.
presumably some aspects of phase 4 will be prequely, or the Disney Plus shows may be set in alternate realities, who knows. I
The
think
the
I think the only show that's going to be post uh, Endgame is the one with Hawkeye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
What
and then they're
about
doing,
the next Spider-Man movie? When it obviously takes place after he comes back, or what is the deal?
it makes more sense that it takes place after. I think him and Ned, and if they're going to keep him in the same like area of high school as the friends from Homecoming, that means they would all have to have been dusted, so that when they all arrive back 5 years later, they're all the same age and can be on that trip together. Otherwise,
I gotcha.
otherwise it doesn't make sense, and who knows? It could be a full-on prequel to Infinity War. and
Okay.
the end of the end of what's it? Far From Home might end with Peter on the bus, seeing that circly thing in the sky from Infinity War, and that's when he
Right.
goes on that mission.
Oh,
But it's
that's true.
interesting.
That could happen.
You can speculate about so many different things that can branch off from this one movie. It's insane.
What
It really is.
no, it really is. It's true.
Yeah,
What about I think that I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, obviously there's going to be more Captain Marvel movies. This movie blatantly sets up that there's going to be another Guardians of the Galaxy movie. At
yeah,
the end of this movie, this was something I was a little confused on. So, Nebula from the future and Gamora from the past team up. Nebula from the future convinces Gamora from the past to kind of like enlighten herself early, I guess, because she does come to that conclusion on her own, as we see in the Guardians of the Galaxy films.
yeah.
And she even meets Quill, and she's like, "Yeah, that's your boyfriend. Like, that's the guy you picked." And she's like, "He seems like an idiot." After that, she disappears. I- Did she get dusted? Because I didn't see her get dusted, what's the fate of past enlightened Gamora 2.0,
Uh,
we'll call her. What's her deal? What's going to happen with her, and is she going to factor into the next Guardians of the Galaxy? There's a lot of questions, I guess.
I need to see the movie again, but I think she's out there somewhere. There's
Yeah,
no rea there's no
she doesn't
reason
get
why she
dusted,
would have
right?
been dusted, because I
Right.
believe, the snap that Tony does is just purely like, if I were to do it, or you were to do it, what would you think? And I would think, when I snap my fingers, I want all the bad guys to disappear, and it's just
Basically,
that simple.
exactly.
And whoever's
Yeah, it's that
attacking the
simple.
good guys at the time, just Gamora isn't doing that, so she's already changed her mind. So yeah, she's definitely gonna. She has to be in Guardians Volume 3. That's gonna be awesome with Thor.
I know.
Like,
Fat Thor at that.
yeah,
He'll probably work out as an Asgardian. He probably just has to like work out for 5 minutes, and all of that's gone.
yeah, really. Those fat jokes got old pretty quick.
Did you really think so? Because honestly,
I,
like
you know
to
how I
tell
knew
the
it was.
truth, like to tell the truth, I was really relating to it because I was like, yeah, I've gotten out of shape, so whatever. I sit in front of the computer a lot. Like I felt like I could relate to Thor in some ways.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Uh, when his mother said, "Eat a salad," I knew she was going to say something like that. I was like,
That's
his mother's
true.
going to say something. His mother's not going to not comment on the way he looks.
By the way, I that was one of the moments that just kind of where I was not able to hold back any longer because Renee Russo,
Oh yeah,
I love her as an actress. She's beautiful. I can't believe I don't know how old Renee
lethal,
Russo is, but she's
lethal
been
weapon
around for
3.
a while. Yeah, exactly. Um, but I just felt like that moment. It's so weird because I think that like there is some truth to it that Chris Hemsworth probably really enjoyed working with her, and so it was like a reunion of sorts. And you really felt that, like you felt it on a meta level because you felt the character, of course, Thor seeing his mother again after she's been dead for so long.
Yeah.
But then you also felt like Chris Hemsworth being just like excited to be. Yeah, I don't know. It was
I
very meta. Did
I
you
can't
feel that?
believe I can't I aside the fat jokes aside with Thor, I can't believe what they did with his character. They just made him so damaged and vulnerable, and like,
Yeah, yeah.
and it, even if you're laughing at him up to that point, when he starts getting in with his mom and starts crying and stuff, you're like, oh well, this is real. Like, he's
It
going through
felt so good.
he's
Yeah,
really going through some shit.
yeah.
And it's fucked
There.
up because he's seeing his dead mother. I mean, and same thing with Tony when he sees his dad and he's having
Oh
that
my God.
long conversation. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe they're doing this in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, this is so perfect. It's such a it's such a great send off to all these characters.
It's like giving both of those characters, I think, something that we desired for those characters. And by the way, so the thing that broke me the first time I actually started crying in the movie, and I wasn't sobbing. I'm not a crier, but I wasn't sobbing like uncontrollably, but like definitely like a tear escaped from my eyes was when Howard Stark says to Tony like, he's not even here yet, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for that kid. And to give that payoff, because like there's been that angst about his father for the whole time, you know what I mean, like especially in the Iron Man movies, it's like a big deal, and like he kind of resolves it, but it's never like resolved. The way it was resolved in this movie is just epic, because it's like he actually got to spend time with his father. And which Avengers was it where they had like they de-aged Robert Downey Jr. and
Civil
they
War.
yeah, in Civil War. So this is, I feel like this is the end cap to the tension of like the struggle in Civil War, where he was like, I never got to like tell my parents, my dad, basically that I love him, and he died. You know what I mean? Like, so it was really, really fucking cool.
Yeah, and there's tie-ins to like the whole cinematic universe, all crammed into this movie through the time travel device, which I love. I love that they can go back and mess with other timelines and get away with it essentially because they can always return to their own timeline. But there's the catch: they have to return the stones to each reality because without them, the structure of reality or something breaks down, and I'm
Here,
not really
here's
sure how that works.
I have a lot to say about this, and I hope you don't mind that I'm going to
No,
go on
go ahead. Go
a
right.
little rant
Go
here.
ahead.
So here's what I really liked about Avengers is that like, in all honesty, like uh, whatever time travel will really truly be, when humans, if we do, when humans actually discover this, the how to time travel, it's going to be nothing like all this bullshit that any of the science fiction series have imagined. You know what I mean? Like, truly, time travel is an experience that like cannot be described, and no one knows what it's going to be like. I've watched I'm not like a scientist or anything like that, but I'm into physics, I'm into astrophysics, I'm into quantum physics, I'm into a lot of things. And like it's very easy to take some of these concepts and like really go wild with them, but like the human mind just can't understand things that are in the fourth dimension. We are third dimensional beings, and we're limited. No matter how hard we try, we're never going to be able to understand what it's like to be in the fourth dimension. That's the only kind of existence that can understand time travel. So that being said, I love that this movie was like they brought up all the time travel. They reference them every single one, and Hulk is like, all of those are wrong. Let me tell you what it's really like. And then it's made
Yeah.
up, of course. It's made up for Avengers, but it works within Avengers. If you try too hard, if you think about it too hard, it's gonna break your mind. Because like, again, there's no way we as third dimensional beings can ever understand what time travel really is like until it actually appears, before like until it actually is a thing that humans are doing. That being said, I think that like the movie took ownership of it, and like the Infinity Gauntlet is like the key to making it like something that you can just buy into, because it's magic. Unlike in Star Trek where you have to use science to prove these things, in Avengers and in the MCU, magic exists, as we know, because Doctor Strange is the wizard, the sorcerer supreme. So
Yeah.
we know in this
It's all
universe magic is a force that exists, and it works. So I loved it. I thought that they handled it amazingly. The device that they built, that Tony built, the Mobius strip, that all that. Like, I think I sent a couple of videos. I don't know if you had a time to watch them, but it did actually try really hard to tie into actual quantum physics theories, and I loved it. I thought it was great. Even if I don't understand it, and I don't understand it, I still loved it.
I yeah, it's like Marvel Cinematic Universe is superhero pure fantasy. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing real about a lot of these what happens in these movies. Prime example is the Iron Man suit, and actually these suits that they use in the movie, which are like so far out. I mean,
Yeah,
really. I mean, they morph their clothes. Apparently they're under these masks or helmets, and then when the helmet disappears, their hair is like perfect. That kind of looks like something that would look very dated 10, 15 years from now if superhero movies truly go like a really, really realistic route. But the rules that they set up within this universe make perfect sense within the universe, and the
right.
stones make sense. They've intricately built this up through plot, uh, weaving it in and out of like plots throughout the entire 22 film run, and brilliantly, while maintaining like individual films their narrative integrity. And the thing with the time travel, they poke fun at Back to the Future, Bill and Ted,
They even mentioned Star Trek, by the way. We
Star
do a lot
Trek,
of Star Trek conversations. So I had to mention it.
and this is almost like All Good Things from TNG, the series finale of TNG, where
Yeah,
Picard can go back in time, but it's not affecting any other timeline that he goes to.
yeah,
And it's just
crazy
it's
shit.
something,
It's
it's
crazy that
something,
it comes to that, right?
it creates this beautiful story convenience where they can like for fun almost, because that's what it is when they go to the back in 2012 and 2014 and 2013 and 1970. Like it's a writer's paradise of like what would you do if you could go back to the other
I
movie
know.
and mess with them, but it's okay, there's no consequences for the
Okay,
prime timeline.
I hate to interrupt you, but since you're right there where you are right now in the present place perspective of time travel in our conversation, since we're
Yeah,
non-linear, America's ass, like the whole fight scene between Captain America and Captain America, the
yeah,
whole sequence actually of like the time heist. What did you love the time heist, or what did you
yeah,
think? Because I
that was the best part of the whole
it
movie,
was super cool,
besides
right?
the ending. Yeah,
Like and even their solution, like they were running out of Pym particles, and like Tony's like, I'm pretty sure both of them were here in the 1970s, and like you see
yeah.
like Ant-Man's like going crazy, like what are you guys doing? And they're like, no problem. And then I'm surprised he didn't steal more of the Pym particles, by the way. He only took 4. But I was like,
Yeah.
take them all, dude. Like let's go crazy with this time travel. It's awesome.
You see Michael Douglas de-age.
Oh my god,
You see
the
a lot of
software.
there's a lot of cameos there too.
Yeah,
What?
so the Michael Douglas scene, I only had one issue with it. Is like the hand when he was talking on the phone. Whoever was like whatever the hand was, I think that was his real hand from nowadays. So they didn't
Uh-huh.
de-age the hand, and it was like I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but that hand just looked off. But that's like a nitpick, and I don't really mean it. It's like whatever.
Uh, did you find it weird that uh, Captain Marvel just found Tony Stark, or was she looking for him? Was she sent
So
out on a mission?
So at the end of what was the film? Was it what was the film that Captain Marvel comes in with the beeper scene at the end credits? What was that one?
That was Infinity War.
Oh, that was Infinity War. Okay, so
That's
I was
the
really
where Nick Fury is dusted.
oh, duh. Yeah, okay, he's dusted, but I forgot where I'm sorry, I'm a little drunk.
That's okay.
Full disclosure. But anyways, okay, so so in Infinity War, like at the end credits, you see Captain Marvel appear when they're looking at this beeper and they're like trying to decipher what the signal's doing, right? But it made it feel like to me that she just kind of like appeared at the last moment and rescued Tony. I'm wondering, did she go to Earth, do the beeper scene in at the end of Infinity War, and they were like, "Hey, can you help us find Tony? He's lost in space somewhere. We don't know where he is." And so she actually did that. Is that a scene that's missing? Like at the end of the day, I didn't mind. I actually thought it was a beautiful scene, like the way it was set up. With they were playing, what was that game that they were playing? Him and Nebula.
Oh,
What
like
was that?
uh, paper soccer or something.
Paper
I don't
soccer.
know.
Yeah, exactly. Like They were playing that game. Yeah, that's what it was with goals and whatever. But anyways, and she kind of like tucks him into his seat, and like she's gonna outlive him because she doesn't have to breathe. I guess the same way she's half cyborg. She's mostly cyborg, I guess.
Mm.
But she tucks him in. Like there was that really sweet scene where she's like, "No, you eat the food." Like it was just really cool, and it like really made you believe Nebula's progress. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like it's not just that she's mad at Thanos. She's actually like progressed as like and like as a being or whatever, you know. Um, and then you
Karen
see this
Gillan
beautiful.
Karen
Go
Gillan
ahead.
as Nebula has never been better. This is like the best Nebula
Oh
film.
yeah.
This is almost like
And
a little mini Guardians film in itself.
not only that, like the way that like the way that they bring past Thanos into it,
Yeah.
with the whole network, because she is on a network, right? And so
Yeah.
it makes sense that when Nebula travels to the past, her brain would just join that network. It was crazy cool. It was like it was beautifully illustrated because like the old Nebula and the new Nebula were like struggling with each other. I thought that was actually like an
And
amazing. Nebula's been a character that like I think like as cool as she is, she's always been secondary to Gamora, and
yeah.
in this movie she was the star in many ways, which I thought was very cool.
And it was the perfect way to get Thanos back in the game. It's like as
Yeah,
soon as he found out what was happening, he's an intelligent villain, right? So he figures stuff out pretty quick, and
yeah,
that spurs all that into motion. And uh, going back to when Captain America, Captain Marvel delivers the ship, right? And they have that conversation about like where Thanos is, and Nebula says he's in the garden, and they go to this planet called the Garden, I guess. And Captain Marvel scouts the place, and she's like, he's alone down there. And once he tells them that he destroyed the stones, and it's pretty clear that he did, and he's not lying, uh, Thor just like chops his head off.
that was awesome.
People gasp. I was like, what? What just happened? What's going to happen now? And then it goes 5 years later. And it was like,
Yeah, it was.
oh, Tony has a kid. And
Yeah.
then when Ant-Man shows up from the quantum realm, and he goes to Captain America and Black Widow, and then they go to visit Tony. Tony understandably doesn't want to mess with time travel because they're thinking about changing like time that maybe his daughter won't exist anymore, type of thing.
Yeah,
Like,
it's really fun. It's a
um,
kind of a real
that,
possibility, you know? Like, yeah,
but that's perfect because the reason the time travel science is the way it is in the movie because it needs to be for Tony to accept it,
I know
and
it's true.
that's the way he figures it out. He's like, oh, this is how it works. Okay, you can go back and you can alter that timeline, but you can go back to your own. So my daughter can still be here, and I can still get the stones, get the gauntlet, save everybody. And
Except he can't because Doctor Strange is an asshole and like Captain Marvel could have done. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a little sore that Tony Stark's dead because I love him so much. But I think it was the greatest kind of storytelling you could ever want. It was really great storytelling. I have a
it
question
is
for
the
you.
greatest. It is the greatest superhero send off in a film
Oh my
ever.
god. It's like nothing. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now. I have a question for you. So, Tilda Swinton's character, what's her character's name again?
The ancient one.
The Ancient One shows Bruce Banner how time works with the Infinity Stones being kind of like these like the rulers of reality. They're like basically the what set the properties of reality into existence. And she says if it doesn't if you remove one of these from any time period, any reality, the whole there's chaos and you get this branch and it's beautifully illustrated. It's a gorgeous scene in terms of CG at the end of that when I wonder I have a question for you because we've been kind of hinging on this scene and when we think about the time travel theory of the movie.
Yeah.
So at first she's like you can't take the infinity stones like we were talking about in our discussion. Well, Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones in one reality, what does that mean for that reality, right? Like that was a question that was posed. And
Well,
I pose this. So like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
they've been living 5 years with no stones in their reality, in the prime reality. So, like, when they go back at the point they go back in time, they've been 5 years without them, and that's I think that's kind of a plot hole because if the Ancient One explains that the stones need to be brought back, that
That's the plot hole I
restored.
was trying to. Okay,
But
so that's the plot hole I was
hold on,
trying to
hold on.
fill.
Well, yeah,
Okay, go
that
ahead.
part I had a theory about why it might make sense because I think if you like maybe stretch your imagination a bit, you could assume that because they were returned, uh, their reality is now safe from being like you know
And has always been safe because
yeah. I
it's
don't know.
restored in the past. Right, exactly.
It's a mind bender for
But
sure.
also another way to look at it, I wonder if you think this is interesting. But like at some point, Bruce Banner's like, "Hey, but you know what? And he says this in response to her saying the Infinity Stone needs to be in that time period. He's like, "But Doctor Strange just handed it over to Thanos. Like he just gave it to him because he thought that there was a chance that, and then she freaks out and she's like, "Wait a second, he's supposed to be like the true Wizard Supreme, like the best of all of us, right? So if he did that, maybe I'm wrong." And she says, "Maybe I'm wrong." Do you
Yeah,
think that maybe she was wrong about the way time works, and that's what that scene was meant to convey?
yeah, that's a good point. It could be. I need to
I
see
have
the
to see
movie.
the movie again. Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
We're on the same thought. But that's my gut. My gut tells me is that that's what she meant in that scene.
I like that revelation when she finds out that Doctor Strange did that, like handed it over, and she knew if like he's the great one or whatever, he would have done it for a good reason, and
Do
that
you
changed.
think it's
I love
do you,
that.
I was a little disappointed that all Doctor Strange did in the movie
Would
was
stop water.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the scene where he brings fucking everybody
Mhm.
into the battle is epic. That's cool, but like I wanted to see him face Thanos. Like I really wanted to see him like I wanted everyone to take a shot at that. Thanos is like the basically the the kicking post. I wanted everyone to get a shot at him.
Do you think Captain America went back to the 40s or the 70s to live out his life? Because
I have to
even if it
go
was
ahead.
the 70s, it would still have been 54 years, and if he was in his 30s, he would have been in his 80s anyway, so unless he
So
aged slowly, I don't know.
so he had to jump to multiple timelines to time points to return the stones because there's like and by the way, what happens to the soul stone? Why does that one have to be returned?
The Soul Stone, yeah, that's a tricky one because people say, "Will Black Widow come back if he returned it?" Or, like,
Yeah.
why would she? And I don't know. I just don't know.
Okay. Well, but that's the thing is like, did Gamora's soul get free when can only one soul occupy? We don't know anything about it, right? It's very
Um,
mysterious.
in the timeline that, uh Hawkeye and Black Widow go to the mountain and she sacrifices herself. In that time, Gamora's death had not occurred.
Oh, you're right, but at the same time, it still did because remember, like, it's that's what I'm saying. That's the part that gets like it's a mind
But
bender,
how
as you
does it
say.
still occur?
Later, it
No, but
occurs late.
that,
So
that's a different.
the
That's the prime
oh, I see what
timeline.
you're saying. I see what you're saying. Like that's the stone in its own future.
Yeah,
Oh, because the stone. You're right, because the
Professor
stone
Hulk.
has.
Professor Hulk tries to explain it as you can't change what has been. You know what I mean?
Right,
You
right,
can.
right.
It's all. Think about it this way: there are infinite parallel dimensions, each so close together that they're basically the same, and you can jump at different points. And when you do that, their path isn't going to be so parallel to yours anymore. That just because you've changed it, you can go there and like. kick a rock, and it
Right.
can kick.
I know what you're talking about, but you're right. It's just too much to keep track of for my little human brain. I'm sorry.
No, it's simple. The way it works is when they go into these different timelines and whatever they do, it's unrelated to whatever has
Gotcha.
already occurred, and there is no paradoxical thing like uh, the closest thing to any kind of self paradox thing is the Gamora and her neural connection, but that's more like science
Oh, you mean
fiction.
Nebula, right?
Yeah,
Nebula.
I can not go, yeah, Nebula. Yeah, it racks your brain though, and it's a perfect thing that they've done here because it's great fan service. People are going to want to see this movie, but they're going to want to see it 2, 3, maybe 4
Oh, for
times.
sure. Yeah, it's true.
It's going to be like how Titanic was back in '97. How like everyone's aunt and mother and sister went out like 3, 4 weeks in a row to see it.
There were people in line who were talking about how the film they read somewhere. I haven't found this. Maybe you know about this, but between pre-sales and like the final sales, like it's definitely clearing 1 million by the end of the weekend. I mean, a billion, a
Billion, yeah.
million. It's just 1 billion by the end of the weekend, which is supposed to be outrageous for a film like this.
Yeah, Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson. When they do the jump 5 years later, and she's talking to a short-haired uh, Captain Marvel, like she looks so stressed out and like just beaten down, and
Oh, I know.
it the way they the acting and the script and everything is just perfect. Like you actually like buy into it, even though it's really fantastical everything that's going on. But like the
At the
emotional
end,
beat and the pacing of the first 2 hours of the movie, which is kind of slow, is actually really beneficial to the third hour. The third
it's
hour
true.
is just all payoff, and it's like, oh, after it's all said and done, you're like, wow, that was like a roller coaster ride.
I Yeah, I didn't even feel 3 hours go by. Like it felt like
No,
really, it felt really
yeah,
good.
it
Um,
gets better and better as it goes.
You were asking earlier about about Captain America. So the way I see it is like ima- it's like everything happened linearly from his perspective, if you will. The Avengers has always been about Captain America, right? Like he's basically the central character. So like even though the Avengers has like Iron Man and like all these other characters, like ultimately it's Captain America's films, right? Because the first Avenger was his film, so on and so forth.
There's so much about Captain America's journey to return the stones that you could like. Somebody said in somewhere on Twitter, you could do a movie or like I mean, a series of movies about it. And
Yeah,
what would his life be in a reality where he's actually still frozen? Would he tell them that where he is right away, or will he wait until they discover him on his own? Or would they ever look for him because they think he's, alive and well now and like he got out of the ice somehow? Or is he keeping it a secret? Like there's so many questions about how he lived his life with Peggy, and that last shot
right.
of him
The
dancing with
way I,
Peggy is just beautiful, and you just want to know more about that.
the the way I look at it is that like what we actually saw in all the Avenger movies was definitely the anchor of it is Captain America himself. So
Oh
you
yeah.
just have to kind of follow his progression, and then the time travel for his story makes complete sense because it's like when he leaves the platform, the mini platform which they constructed pretty quickly, I guess, where the Hulk sends him off and he's like counting down 5 4 3 2 1 and he never comes back, right?
Mm.
Captain America went back in time, restored all the stones, went to Peggy and like told her, "Hey, I'm here." He took off the return device, and that's that. It's as simple as that. I think everything still happens. It kind of fits perfectly because everything still happens the way it happens because the Captain America that Peggy meets is the oldest version of him. It's like the one that already experienced all that. So you don't have to worry, and
Mm.
then he goes back in time. It's almost like what he decided to do with his reward, if you will, because he does deserve a fucking reward for saving like the universe, right? is he
Oh my god.
decides
He
this is
grabbed.
how my what?
Go ahead. No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is my reward. This is
Yeah.
how I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm retiring in the past to live out with Peggy, and they keep it a secret. They don't say anything, and then he comes out at the end and he gives Sam the shield, and then it's just beautiful. I thought it was like that.
Speaking of Captain America and rewards, when he summons the hammer,
Oh,
people went crazy.
same in my theater. Same thing. And me too. I was just fucking crazy. My sister, who I went with my mom and my sister. My sister just like reached across because my mom was sitting between us, and she was just like, "Holy shit!" And I'm like, "Yeah, holy shit."
Yeah, that's
And he
crazy.
could pick up both. He could pick up the what is it called, Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. So he was like worthy.
Yeah.
Didn't Thor say something like, "I knew it"? Like he
I knew it
knew.
because of what happened in Age of Ultron when everybody's trying to lift the hammer, and Captain America tries, and it budges, and Thor has a worried look on his face.
That's right. That's what it was a reference to. Absolutely. So no, it was super cool, and it's true that I mean, like the hammer has a very simple message on it, right? It's like just I will work for he who is worthy, or whatever it says, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Do
was
you
awesome.
notice when Captain America was fighting Thanos, and actually when Thanos fights a couple of people, he never like brutally kills them as he so is able to do. Like there's a couple of points in Infinity War, and there's a couple of times in this when Captain America's fighting Thanos that Thanos basically just knocks him out. He just gives him a hard punch to the head, but he doesn't like break his neck. He has like every opportunity to kill him.
Yeah, he could have just like used his sword and like sliced him through, right, or whatever.
And even when Thanos is fighting like Peter Parker and Iron Man on that planet in the last movie, he's he's not. He's just like he's not aiming to kill. He's not. He's a really strange villain who is the perfect example of a villain who thinks he's the hero.
Yes.
Like he's so
Yes.
sure of himself,
Yes.
and the look on his face when he knows he's about to get dusted.
We
Oh,
don't
I
we
love
don't
it.
get we don't get to see this, but you almost can be pretty sure that like when he's gonna erase the universe and create the new one, he wants the Avengers to survive. He wants them to see what he's going to do. Because if he doesn't have an that's the other thing about a villain like him is like because he thinks he's good, he needs an audience. He needs someone to justify, oh yeah, you were right. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Maybe that's the sick thing about it, is that like in a way he can't kill them, because I actually thought about this, like why doesn't he just like, I mean he's a fucking titan, right? And he's had the Infinity Gauntlet all this time. Like he doesn't really need to take to dust one person alone. Doesn't take a lot of effort. Like yeah, dusting half the universe is one thing, but like he could have dusted Thor just by himself. You know what I mean? So you make a really great point about that. I think he does. He like kind of wants
oh,
them
he couldn't
to
have
see.
dusted Thor
Oh yeah.
because the plan was that it had to be random. Thor
Oh, that's right.
could have been one of them, but
No, but what I'm saying is like if you're really annoying Thanos, like could and when he had his Infinity
he's like,
Gauntlet, like when he was
do
in
it at
Supreme.
random, but pick Thor.
Yeah, but he could have just been like, oh, I mean, he could have done anything. Like, I feel like the Infinity Gauntlet, especially the version that Thanos had, right, where he had
Yeah,
the gauntlet itself was made by, you know, I I can only think of him as Tyrion Lannister, but like the dwarf, which is not a dwarf, who
but
like creates the glove. I mean, that's
more
powerful stuff. It's not
more
just
to
like,
more to
you
the
know,
point. More to the point. Thanos didn't care that he had that axe in his chest. It hurt, but
but he didn't give a shit. You're
he
right.
didn't give a shit. He succeeded. That was his moment of victory. So yeah,
So yeah, I think he was keeping them alive because he kind of like, since they were the most formidable maybe opponent he's ever had, or they were interesting in some way maybe to him, he kept them alive
no,
to.
the
Not that he kept them alive, but he wouldn't just like kill them in any
Oh yeah,
way.
yeah,
He
yeah,
like
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like he wouldn't just kill them the same way he would kill like any of us. Like Thanos wouldn't waste his time on you and me, right? Like he would just be like, "Let me just step on you and you're dead."
yeah.
Right?
And
Like
and 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 that's what's it's another thing that's great. He is the greatest Marvel villain as far as I'm concerned, especially because he he detests violence. He commits
yeah,
it.
in a weird way, it's
Commits
kind
it
of
when he
weird.
thinks it's
Yeah.
necessary, absolutely necessary, but he chooses not to whenever he can.
But it's
He
not
like
true.
like,
It's all
he
false. Like in it,
I love that when he Captain, what is it, Captain Marvel, he tries to headbutt her, and then he takes the Power Stone out in his fist and just punches her, and she goes flying.
so actually, that's a good point. Like, why would the Power Stone alone be more powerful than when it's combined with all the Infinity Stones?
I don't know.
I'm sorry. I did
He
think about that. It's
I
like,
think he just it's just a momentary power boost,
yeah, I
and
guess
he just
so.
improvised it and did it because he doesn't wanna use the gauntlet except for one thing, and he wants to use it for that just one thing, 'cause
Maybe
that's
that's his problem. Like, if he was creative, he could have frozen everyone and then just snapped his fingers and then like. But I
oh,
think
yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm saying. Like,
He could have done a lot of stuff, but how much can you improvise in a panic situation? But if you
with
thought of it,
all
if you really
with
thought about it,
yeah.
if you really thought about it, went forward in time and, like, used the time stone to, like, see what the outcome could have been, you could really, like, plan your moves
Oh, 100%. It's
accurately, right?
true. Which
But
is what
he
Doctor
doesn't go
that's what Doctor Strange did with his remember he was like looking at every possible future like a billion
yeah.
or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So that's basically what Doctor Strange did, which Thanos didn't do.
Yeah, 'cause well, Doctor Strange is, like, the one, he's the expert, and that was great because what happens to Tony is the one in however many million possibilities where they could succeed. Like that was the only way, and it all came full circle, and it all made sense in the end. Because if Tony wanted to know what was going to happen, but if he knew that he was going to die, it might affect the outcome.
Right, which Strange says, yeah.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking, but do you, what do you think? Like do you think Iron Man it was time to retire both Iron Man and Captain America or do you think that like do you think there should have been more movies or do you think it was just perfect the way they did it?
Um, Either of the actors could return in some capacity. Tony could be like a hologram or something,
Oh, of course, that's true.
maybe a few years down the line or something, Chris Evans may come back as Captain America and do a movie set in the timeline in which he aged into an old man. Maybe he did some stuff. Who knows? We have no idea.
Oh, 100% he probably did actually, to come to think of it. Like, there's no way, Captain America stayed out of the fight.
And and Pepper Potts has the suit now,
Yeah, it's true.
and
I do like
Brody
I
still
do
has
go ahead.
Brody still has War Machine. So
So a lot of people that I know said that Bucky was supposed to be the next Captain America, not Sam. In the comics, does Bucky become Captain America for a time? Is that a real thing?
um, I I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I think either or. Like it's happened with two of them,
Both of them, right? Okay, okay.
like Bucky Barnes or what's Falcon's name?
Because Rogers in the comics, there's been multiple Captain Americas.
Yeah,
It's like a thing. Like there's been isn't and Captain America's been a woman at some point too, right? Isn't that true?
I think so. They've all
Like in the
been
I feel like in the
they've all have had all superheroes have had versions where like it's opposite sex or something like that, right?
right, like Stark in the comics has not been the only Iron Man, right? There's been other
Yeah.
iterations of Iron Man. So yeah, it's
Some
cool.
people
I like that the
suspect.
films are doing the same thing.
Yeah, maybe Shuri becomes Iron Man, or who knows?
I couldn't believe I couldn't remember who Shuri was. That was terrible. I forgot that character altogether because she kind of just appears at the end of this movie. She was huge in Infinity War, but like I was like, oh yeah. Um, what's next for Marvel? What's gonna happen? When is there gonna be another Avengers movie, or is this it?
I don't think there's going to be another movie with the Avengers title in it. It's going to be some other name or
What's next? Like, what could be bigger than the Avengers? What is your prediction?
the Assemblers. No, I have no idea.
I have to admit for myself, I like the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise a lot, so I'm hoping that like we get a couple of lighthearted Guardians of the Galaxy movies coming down the line. Like I would really like that. I hope they
We're
do
getting
stay lighthearted. It would be awesome.
we're getting Far From Home this
Oh yeah, that
year,
I'm
and
excited about that. Do you like the Marvel Spider-Man treatment better than the Sony Spider-Man treatment? Or what did you think of those Sony films versus the new take by Marvel?
they all have their benefits and drawbacks. So it's I think the best two Spider-Man films are Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 2,
For
Sam
me
Raimi.
it's
Uh,
Into the Spider-Verse and Homecoming. I thought that when
I like it.
Marvel took back Spider-Man, they like made it the most original thing ever because we'd been kind of like I feel like with the Tobey Maguire film and then the Andrew Garfield films, they just repeated. They felt like repetitive. Like it was like we found out the
Yeah,
origin story again and all this. And what I
yeah.
loved about Homecoming is that it just dived right into it. Like it didn't bother with all that.
They integrated him into the MCU like pretty flawlessly.
Yeah, I have to
Like it,
say.
it, yeah, you can't imagine a film version of Spider-Man that's not connected now. Like he's just a part of everything now. Like he's
Gee, I liked I liked that Tony, even though he was very fulfilled with his daughter and like everything, like the life he had created in the 5 years since the snap, if you will. But I love that he had a picture of Peter Parker and like there was this whole like dad son thing going on. Like I don't know what did you think of that? And I thought it worked like that. Like the first person to come to
well,
Tony's side was Peter, and then Pepper Potts had to kind of go like, okay, I got this. Like don't worry, I'm here. And then she like it ended with her and Tony, which is appropriate, of course. But I like that there was this whole thing, this whole story.
yeah, his reluctance to investigate time travel or invent it or something. He's reluctant, but he changes his mind partly because of Peter Parker.
Yeah, yeah, totally,
No.
100%.
And when they have that reunion, it was so great. And but
When he hugs him, yeah, it was great. That was a great
oh,
scene.
so good. And then when he Tony dies and Tom Holland's acting, he's really like crying and
I mean,
holy
also
shit,
just in
that's so
general, just
real.
like
And
Tom Holland just like makes Peter Parker so lovable. I don't know if you agree with that, but it's just like he feels so genuine. Like it feels like when he's like, and I don't know what happened, and I woke up and like I was here, like that
he's
whole thing.
yeah, that kind of like goofy, naive, like hyper-active attitude that he has a lot, I'm not too fond of.
I love that. The opposite. I'm like, oh my god, I love it.
Just take it down a notch, take it down a notch.
I
Well,
think
but
that's what.
he's in a
But I think
situation where he's really it's
I
really
think that's
touching.
what's endearing about it is that because like at the same time you're annoyed by it, but at the same time you're like, you know what? I know a lot of kids like that. Like and that like there's family like that. Like my cousins are like, you know what I mean? Like just anyone younger, you see this enthusiasm for life and they're just like they don't know what to do.
Think about
I don't
this,
know.
Tom Holland has been in 4 Marvel movies now, 3 of which feature like Avenger type casts, 2 of which are actual Avengers movies, but Civil War, which is like a little mini Avengers movie. and he's starting his own film. Like
I
at that,
know.
like they've just integrated the character in so well with everything now that when that happens, you feel the connection because you go back to Homecoming. That's where the relationship developed, and even more so, you go back to Civil War, and they meet each other for the first time. But you can just go back and just see all the connections, and that's when you get to the end when that happens, that's where the emotional payoff has everybody like breaking down and like,
Right.
oh, my life. Oh,
When does Far From Home come out?
let me check. uh, Far From Home.
Far From Home. That's the next Spider-Man movie. I'm trying not to keep some dead air here since we're live.
Yeah, nobody's watching.
Everybody's watching.
This is a good talk though. July 2nd.
I'm glad you're enjoying this talk. I am too. I love this talk. July
Yeah,
2nd, that's not too far from now. What's the next Marvel movie after this one? Like, is there something, do you know if there's anything
I'm
planned?
gonna look at the Marvel slate here because Marvel Cinematic Universe, because they have some films that are not announced, but there's slates there for them.
So he was in Civil War,
The next two,
obviously
the next
Homecoming,
two, yeah,
Endgame. Oh wait, Infinity War, Endgame, and now he's doing Far From Home. Wow, that's true. You're right.
that's five altogether there. So it's pretty cool.
So what? Wait, what's the next movie coming out?
Spider-Man: Far From Home, July, and then Shang-Chi. It's uh, it's an Asian superhero. I don't know much about, and they don't have an actual date, but it's in 2020
Oh wow. So after Spider-Man, the next movie we're gonna get is Shang-Chi.
as of now. But they haven't revealed anything about Phase 4 yet. Pretty much,
Oh
Uh, Phase
wow.
Phase 3 actually ends with Spider-Man: Far From Home,
Oh, so
not
this will
Avengers.
be the. Do you think so? Spider-Man in some way, Spider-Man Far From Home in some way will be the epilogue
Yep,
to Endgame.
exactly. Oh my God, you got it right. That's
Wow. Okay.
I think there's going to be a lot in that movie that people don't expect
Yeah,
in
I
terms
think so too.
that
Huh.
maybe some other Avengers may show up.
Maybe it's true. Interesting. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So we didn't really go through like the plot bit by bit, and that was cool.
We were all over the place, but I feel
Yeah.
like we got a lot in there. It's true.
Uh, what'd you think about Thor going off with the Guardians?
I'm excited. I think that's going to be great if they do Guardians with Thor. By the way, that whole scene, I, I just like. I made this comment earlier. I felt like the Russo brothers somehow brilliant. I feel like they like. I felt like each director of all of these different films was somehow their tone and the way that they direct, like from John Favreau to I can't say his name, but Taika, what is his name?
Tai-
Waikiki.
Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi.
Yeah, Taika
I felt
Waititi.
like all of their styles were somehow represented in this movie, and I don't know if that was just because like the Russo brothers are geniuses or if they like actually all contributed some way or another, but like the film just like fluidly and seamlessly bounced in and out of all these, even Kenneth Branagh, like when they go back, I don't know, it just felt like super legit.
Uh,
um so if we get another Thor film, oh, not I don't know if we're gonna get another Thor film. Sorry, if we get another Guardians of the Galaxy film and Thor is a character in it, I think it's gonna be delightful.
I think that's exactly what they set up
Yeah, I think so
because
too.
I think they're on a mission to find Gamora, and that might be a part of it.
I agree. I
But
think so because
the
she just
beautiful thing about
disappears.
yeah, she took off somewhere. I don't know what happened. She's not dead. I know that. I gotta go see that again, obviously, because
I
there's a
mean,
lot of details.
regardless of what happens, I mean, obviously, like Quill is gonna be obsessed with like getting her back somehow,
Oh yeah.
like convincing her like
Oh, when
there's a
he
re there's a
he
reason you fell in love with me. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
but that part when, he sees her and he goes right up to her. Hello?
Yeah, like where he thought it was
Oh, yeah,
actually he thought it was
yeah.
his Gamora.
And you knew what was gonna happen. She was gonna, like, hit him or something, and
But and
she kicks him in the balls.
it echoed like how she reacted to him in the first place. So it
Yeah,
it was kind of
that
like a
makes sense.
cool thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's oh, so much happened. Let me go over something here. I know I'm missing something really important.
What
Oh,
could it
yeah,
be?
Bruce
Oh,
Banner. Bruce
oh
Banner
yeah.
as that guy who's, like, not the Hulk, but not Bruce Banner. He's Professor Hulk now. The
So
special blew
is
me
that a
away. I
thing?
had no idea they were gonna do that.
I had no idea either, actually.
W What'd you think of that? Did you find that, like, odd
It,
looking, or did you just go with it?
at first, I went with it. I went with it, and I don't remember anything from the comics about that. But like I said, you know my story. I'm not like
Oh, I don't care
deep.
about the comics,
Yeah,
what happened in the comics either, just
but just from my reaction, what I thought about was like what's his face from X-Men, like Hank, right? Like I thought it was a similar kind of idea as Hank, but I really enjoyed it. I have to admit, like the Hulk Bruce hybrid,
yeah.
I kind of loved it because it kind of like set up this thing of like it kind of made sense where if there were going to be independent Hulk movies, I feel like that's the eventual place where they would have ended up, is that where Bruce Banner and the Hulk kind of found a harmony, right?
Mm,
And in Infinity War, you don't really get that as much. Like you do, it's weird that like Hulk won't come out, in these stressful situations where he's like, no, like there's at one point where he transforms, he's like, no, or whatever, like he won't actually
yeah,
come out.
they were setting up the evolution of him eventually being
Right.
both.
So there were definitely supporting kind of sequences in Infinity War that like made it make sense. But at the same time, I think there could have been a movie. Like there could, but at the same time I loved it. I thought it was great. Ultimately it worked for me. Um and I like that when he meets the Ancient One, she like separates him from the, you know what I mean? Like she separates him from that,
Yeah,
and it's just Bruce Banner and her interacting, and then she gives it back to him at the end. It's kind of, I don't know, it was kind of an interesting thing. It was a very cool thing.
that's what I loved about the 5-year jump, like, everything's changed and so much has happened. There's 5 years worth of material you could put into, like, an animated show or something like that, you know what I mean? You could fill in the gaps somehow. Uh, yeah, like, all their journeys for that 5 years in, like, the decimated world, how, Hawkeye becomes Ronin. That's another thing we forgot to talk about, but what'd you think of that scene in, Tokyo, that sword fight? I thought that was probably the best one-on-one close combat fight in the entire film because there's not a lot of fights pretty much until the end. Oh, we lost, Starfleet Boy. Okay, well, thank you. Anybody has stuck around this long and listened to the end. Thanks for listening and have a great day.